G'day guys, welcome back to the channel on a very wet, rainy day. Sorry about the noise on the roof, but I'm not going to say no to this beautiful weather. I'm David, and today we've got this little nursery shop tea tree, probably one of my favourite little trees that I have at the moment. It's looking really good. It's got some really interesting movement in the trunk and in some of the branches. And it's undergoing active growth at the moment. All these light green tips you can see everywhere, that's all new growth. It just needs a little bit of help to sort of establish some of the branches a bit better. There's a big open section here that's straight that needs a bit of work. I'd like to try and even just push that pad back in a little bit and hopefully get some more growth in close there. But if not, just bring that pad back in. There's some weird stuff going on in here with this big curved branch, but we'll have a closer look at that as we go. So I'm just doing some basic pruning on it today. We're not going to repot it or anything like that. I just want to get on top of some of the things that need correcting with this tree before it grows too much further. So we'll probably start at the bottom, and obviously this is your first branch that comes out. And there's nothing particularly wrong with it, I don't believe. It sort of does conflict with this one up here a little. This one up here is probably a nicer branch. It's got some curves and stuff in it. So whether I bring this one down a little, I mean, that's not typically how these trees grow. They do tend to grow upwards a little. But I don't really want that conflict either. So I reckon if I could get some back buds down here and maybe move that branch down a little bit, or I'll just wire it down. The branch is probably borderline too stiff now to move it, but you know, we can have a go. If we break it, we break it. But initially, I'm just going to cut all these back a fair bit shorter. Just because I want to try and push that growth back and get some back budding further down. And then maybe it might not look so bad anyway. Any of these branches like this one here that's crossing over that one, they generally go. Got one here that's sort of coming forward, which is fine, but it conflicts with that one. I'm sure we'll address that in a minute. Just really want to shorten everything right up, and then we can see where all the new shoots come from, and they'll all turn into new branches over time. So I'd really like to bring that down so it's not conflicting with this. I mean, we can grow that up a little bit more to put it up a little bit higher. But I still feel that this needs to be down in this sort of area here, more so than that area. I mean, you can bend some of these down too, but then you're getting a long way out from the tree for the size of the tree. Your foliage pad's going to be way out on a long, skinny branch, and that's not going to really look any good either. So I think we'll just continue with trying to prune it back and try and push that growth back. And just watch for budding on here. In fact, none of that's any good. You know what? That's going up too high. I don't want to prune everything off, but it's also not a lot of point in leaving too much that's not going to be of use for anything. They'll all reshoot and grow again, but I'm hoping that it'll push out some buds back here, and we can maybe start. If I can get one bud here, I can just cut all that off, and then I can start ramifying for that little canopy there, and I can shape it to be down a little bit lower. So we'll leave that. This up here, so this huge big long rainbow curve in here that just looks terrible. And there is another branch right behind it. it's not as straight. You'd have to watch that you didn't leave it keep going and going and going. But we've got some branches here, we can trim them right back, and then we can start ramifying a canopy, sorry, not a canopy. We can start ramifying a little pad in there. So really, for the front of the tree, this one here is pretty much redundant. It's not required. And then we can start pushing these back as well. Because we don't want the thing to extend really any further than what it is. We want it to start dividing and dividing into more and more branches. So we can just get that cool pad effect with the foliage. Often with these I'll go all the way back to where there's 2 branches coming out. And even then this one, there's a shoot coming out there, and then there's another shoot in behind it there. You can just bring it back to there, and then they can divide and divide and divide. But again, if it shoots in closer, I'll probably take advantage of that. Probably pull that big one back. I'll leave a bit of a stub there because that may well shoot more. Might leave that as is for now. Just tidy up some of the dead stuff as we're going. Probably not too bad. Yeah, I mean it looks a bit thin, but that'll grow back, and I'm hopeful that it'll bud back as well while it's going. This back one, probably shorten it right up, make it a little bit more compact. That's sort of growing back. Don't really want to lose that because I'd like that to be a part of the foliage pad as well. So maybe, I might put a little tiny bit of wire on that. And we'll just bend it down and towards the back so it can become a part of that foliage pad. And it'll set into that position. Rather than growing back up and towards the main trunk. We don't want that growing up there either. Right. Now we sort of need to work out what we're going to do with the apex of the tree, whether we want to continue growing on, which I don't think we really do. If we grow up much higher, the trunk's going to look really, really thin. I mean, it doesn't really have a lot of size about it even now. So, what do we do? What do we do? There's no reason why that whole thing couldn't become the apex. I wouldn't leave all that foliage there for now because it will, like most Australian natives, once they get growing up the top here, they'll push the energy to there and not so much to these. So you really need to keep this compact. So these guys are in the sun and creating plenty of energy to keep them growing, because otherwise the top will just take over. So to start with, probably get rid of any of this stuff that's all crossing over. There's branches crossing over backwards and forwards. So we'll probably get rid of some of those to start with. And then we'll see what we've got left. A lot of these we could just trim back. So there's a couple of shoots there, and that gives you your dividing branches that you need to get those really ramified canopies, which is what we sort of ultimately aim for. Some of these that are really long, if you can come back to where there's one shoot, that'll give you that bit of a direction change. And then when that grows, if we cut it back, then it should start dividing. Oh, and there's crossing over. It's quite long and straight, so we might just ditch that. And this rain is just beautiful. I'm actually hopeful that it might fill up our dam today. We've been waiting and waiting and waiting for some runoff rain. People around us have had it, and we just seem to have missed it. I mean, we've had plenty of rain. The place is green as. Keeps the mower going, but we just haven't had that runoff rain, and I'm hoping now that everything's wet that this will actually run a bit of water. And by the sound of it, I reckon it'll be on. I'll probably trim some of these ones that are underneath and growing down a bit. Just because we want a little bit of separation between this pad and that one. Could probably even get rid of that. Take that back. Yeah, we can just get that separation, and then once that pad is in there and filled out, it's clearly defined. It'll be separate to that, and separate to that, and separate to that. Just adds to that nice bonsai look. You know, the manicured look, I suppose, that some of the bonsai trees have. I find just clipping the growing tips off some of these ones that haven't been touched, a bit like doing a hedge. It'll promote them into dividing and creating more branches, which is ultimately what we want. I think this one here is a little bit weird looking. I reckon that might just about do that. I reckon if we come back in a month or two, this will have all just bushed out again, and it'll probably need to be pushed back in again. And we can see then if we have got some buds in closer, if we have, we can do stuff with them. If not, we'll just keep pushing the growth in and pushing it, and it should just get denser and denser, just like a hedge. The only difference between doing these and a hedge, there's generally no designing that goes into a hedge. You just cut it off flat like a box, you know, just big rectangle. These we're a lot more selective to get specific branches to grow in specific directions. It's there's a lot more to it. The roots on this, I don't know if I'm a fan. A lot of tea trees seem to grow this way with this massive mess of roots. If you've mucked around with tea trees before, I wouldn't mind finding out if anybody's sort of trimmed these back one by one and tried to get back to a normal looking root base that you'd associate with other trees, like, you know, that big wide base with the roots like you see on the maples and stuff, you know, that have those really big impressive roots. I mean, I don't want anything that big, but to get a few main roots coming out would look pretty cool. But I don't know, maybe this twisted look here, I mean, it suits the tree, I suppose. I guess that's something that we can muck around with over time. Anyway, I reckon that's probably about it for today. Again, it looks pretty bare, but it'll come back in no time at all. I've not long given it a feed, so it doesn't need any more, but I will keep the dynamic lifter up to it. And yeah, it should come back really good. I'll get it back on the video in a couple of months and we'll see where it's at. Righto, thanks for watching. I'm going to go and enjoy this rain. See you on the next one.